Sox had a busy weekend. Not only the chaos that happened at Winter Weekend, but they also added an option up the middle.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into Locked On Red Sox podcast. And thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Jake Ignaszewski, and here, as always, with my co-host, NESN's Lauren Willand. But we hope everybody enjoyed their weekend. It was relaxing for you. You were able to enjoy the entertainment of what seemed like a reality show of the Red Sox Winter Weekend with drama happening. It seemed like every single second. Pretty interesting to follow it all throughout Twitter. Unfortunately, myself and Lauren weren't able to make the event, but it was pretty eventful to watch it all unfold and then see the replay on NESN last night. But Lauren, I wanted to get your thoughts on sort of everything that unfolded this past weekend.
So before we get into that, as soon as you hit the intro music to our pod, the Red Sox DFA'd Matt Barnes. So somehow Matt Barnes gets DFA'd and Ryan Brasier is still on this team. This literally happened the second you hit the music.
Yo, no way.
And I was like, oh. And then Derek just texted me just saying Matt Barnes. So yes, Chris Cotillo has it. Chris Henrik has it. He's due just over $8 million for this season. So that move, I'm assuming, is to make room for Adam Duvall. That would be my guess. And Ryan Brasier somehow still survives. I would rather take Matt Barnes over Ryan Brasier, especially how Matt Barnes kind of turned things around in the second half of last season or after the last few months. Like, I don't know. It's bizarre. I thought we were just going to be talking about Winter Weekend, and now we're talking about Matt Barnes getting DFA'd.
Wow. So for everybody listening, at the beginning, this is a part that you guys don't really see. At the beginning of each episode, Lauren and I sort of figure out what we want to talk about, come up with notes and then, hit record and then bam. But, now let's start off with this. And, also the other thing too is, today the Red Sox have lost two bullpen arms. Obviously we're going to speak more about the Modesty trade in the second segment, but they lose Josh Taylor to the trade with the Royals, and now lose Matt Barnes, who, in my thought, he was a second inning option, a guy who had a very impressive second half. And as you mentioned, $8 million compared to what, $2 million that they're paying Ryan Brasier.
And he's coming off it. Like I said, he didn't have it in 2021. He didn't have it in the first half of last year, but he struck out 84 batters over 54 and a third, 54 and 2/3 innings to end the season. Maybe it's a money move. I don't know, but right now, like just seeing the news, not even trying to like dive deep and not even trying to form like thoughts around it. It just doesn't really seem to make sense. There was a press conference scheduled for 6:15. So it's been delayed. I don't know if that was to introduce Adam Duvall. I don't know. This is sports, right? It was the Red Sox did make a move today, but overall, I don't know. It's bizarre. But right now, anyway, I can't make it make sense anymore that Ryan Brasier has survived so many cuts, and that's not even like my biased disdain toward him. I do not understand. Yes, he had a good final month of the season, but I'm still taking Matt Barnes over Ryan Brasier. If you put the both of them in front of me to go out and finish the game, I'm picking Matt Barnes. And this doesn't mean like, I wonder if someone will claim him or if maybe the Red Sox will release him. I don't know. I don't know what's next for him. This is weird. I don't like it.
Yeah, this is very weird, and you are really right now in real time getting our reaction of this move. And one thing that semi makes a little bit of sense is the Red Sox were reportedly one of a few teams interested in a middle inning reliever. Adam Chafin as well as Matt Moore included in those types of names. Maybe Zach Britton. That was reported by Ken Rosenthal today. So that move or that indication of the Red Sox being interested in some of those middle to late inning relievers could indicate that maybe Matt Barnes going into spring training didn't really have a spot, but as I mentioned before, you just lost Josh Taylor. Coming into at least this podcast or also into this season, I felt very confident about this Red Sox bullpen. But now, where does this really leave, how everybody stacks up? Obviously Kenley Jansen's going to be in that closer role. Where's Chris Martin going to be? And where does the hole that Matt Barnes is eventually going to leave? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's a question that I certainly don't have an answer for right now. And I felt good about the bullpen overall, and that included Matt Barnes being in there. We talked about that. We were hoping that I don't know if one of us called him a potential X factor for next season, that he could be a very solid setup guy for the closer. And I get it, the contract sucks, but Chaim Bloom gave him that contract. It's a big contract, but it's like contracts don't work the way in MLB the way they do in the NHL. But I don't know. Like, is Matt Barnes era in Boston over? How does Ryan Brasier survive another round of DFAs? What is next? Like, is there more moves coming for this bullpen? And now what? Like, there must be. I mean, we can sit here and say there must be a plan, but I think we've seen that there's not really a direction or a plan. And I think this is another move that kind of proves that there's no real direction of this team. Like, where are we going? What are we doing? Make it make sense.
I was just about to say that. Make it make sense. Like I'm really trying to wrap my head around this because you also bring up the money factor of it too, and we said before we hit record, the Red Sox have the money, so if they need to add guys, they can. Obviously, the whole mindset is staying under the luxury tax if you're not planning on initially competing, but I feel like they had to have just looked at this bullpen. Wouldn't be surprised if they have a whole whiteboard in their front office, meetings, and they just thought, Matt Barnes just doesn't fit. And not saying that Ryan Brasier does whatsoever, but the one thing that I always come back to is earlier in the offseason, I believe it was the GM meetings, Chad Jennings reported that Brian O'Halloran called Ryan Brasier one of the key contributors in the Red Sox bullpen going into this next season. Make it make sense.
We can't.
Yeah.
We can't. I think that's just it. We can't right now. And we don't know if Chaim Bloom is going to talk on Tuesday anymore. We don't know if it's going to be later while we're recording. We don't know. A press release was just sent out saying a time TBD. So this makes me think that this may have gotten leaked before they were able to announce it themselves. So I don't know. I mean, hopefully we get some clarity, get some answers. Maybe this is a big joke. It's not, but
yeah,
like you said, make it make sense. I don't know. I keep saying I don't know, and it's bugging me that I keep saying it, but it's just another move that gives no direction where the Red Sox are going. And it didn't make me feel much better after Winter Weekend. That was our original topic for the first segment of the show. I still didn't feel confident about direction, but anytime Alex Cora speaks, I think he speaks very, very well. And I think he does still instill a lot of confidence in Red Sox fans, and the players love playing for him. But does he know the direction of this team? I mean, obviously he knows the direction it wants to go, but will he be able to direct them there? I don't know. IDK.
Now, one other thing, and I'm gonna say this one more time. Like we're reacting to this in real time, so my mind is spinning right now of all the possibilities of why. Just trying to understand the explanation. Now, one other thing that I did want to mention: the Red Sox did sign 32-year-old Ryan Sheriff, to most likely a minor league deal. That's where he pitched last season. Was majority of his time in the minors, outside of him having an injury. Maybe they see him as a possible depth piece that could find a way to really impress in spring training, to be slotted into that bullpen. Then you also got Joely Rodriguez that is also a possible option in that bullpen. Who knows really how they're going to utilize Tanner Houck? He did mention at Winter Weekend he plans to go into spring training as a starting pitcher. Zach Kelly's another guy. Are you going, and Kaleb Ort too, are you going to rely on them more to be in the bullpen? This is all just that's flowing out of my mind right now of, why, but that happened, I guess. So we'll most likely hopefully get a little bit more of an explanation, going into tomorrow. So that's I guess our initial reaction of Matt Barnes being DFA'd. And you also mentioned it too. With the DFA, the Red Sox now have a week to find a trade partner. Now, does that mean that they're going to take any of his contract? Probably not. So you're probably going to be paying for somebody else to have Matt Barnes. And if they release him, it's the same exact thing. But, just wow.
Wow, indeed. Wow, indeed. But Winter Weekend.
Yeah,
Winter Weekend. Which was the main, like I said, main topic of this podcast, or the first topic of this podcast. Yeah. I don't think Matt Barnes was there. That would have been funnier if he was, but I don't know. Obviously the big topic was the town hall Friday night before the actual day of the festivities, and it was a warm welcome, to say it politely, to the front office. This was the first time John Henry has really shown face in 3 or 4 years to facing questions. Chaim Bloom obviously was there, Sam Kennedy, Alex Cora, and a lot of boos. Lot of boos. And it was, this crowd came very angry. This crowd came ready, and this crowd came ready to share their true feelings, and something they haven't been able to do in 3 years at this event. And we all know how fans feel about Chaim Bloom and the moves he's made, and John Henry and the ownership of this Red Sox team, and the lack of direction, especially last year. But it was, I mean, it's a great event. It's a great event for fans to connect with other fans and players and kind of feel part of the team and the organization and the community. But what a way to start that winter weekend with that town hall, because woof, I'm so glad I was not Chaim Bloom or John Henry or Sam Kennedy.
And like I said at the start of this episode, it really did feel like a reality show. I was working a hockey game at UMass Lowell Friday night, and throughout the breaks, I was just looking on Twitter and really couldn't believe everything that was happening. I did want to start off by starting my reaction of, even though Chaim Bloom has been here since 2019. I don't believe he has really been able to face the fans like he did this past weekend. And I think this really reminded him, if he hasn't already figured it out, he's not in Tampa anymore. You can't lose. You can't lose homegrown talent like Tampa does every other year with their type of payroll and with their type of roster management, and think that fans are going to be okay with it. And, the way that he started, I think he did a great job of staying composed with everything that was thrown at him. He didn't look nervous. He came prepared with an explanation for why he's done the things that he's done. Now, not to say he didn't deserve getting booed for not saying Mookie Betts' name and then referring to his contract about 10 times using the word Betts, which is his last name. That was definitely he definitely deserved the boos for that, because you're essentially not saying his name, but also saying his name, but in a different context. So I think it was a great way for, not only, as you mentioned, the ownership, but also the front office to understand the feelings that the fans have of the current state of the Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, you said he did a good job. I mean, I wouldn't say he necessarily looked nervous. He definitely looked uncomfortable, but he did a good job of lying. He lied straight to the fans' face. I mean, you can't sit there and say that, you had to get rid of these players because you didn't have any prospects coming in, where I'm like, wait a second. Yes, you did, because before you had Tristan Casas, you had Ceddanne Rafaela, you had Brian Mata, and then under you had Dahlbeck and Duran and Chavis, who was already at the MLB level. You had Brian Bayo, and Pete A put out a tweet that said half of the organization's current top 20 prospects were drafted or signed before Chaim Bloom started. So don't boldface lie and so confidently lie when it's not there. And also, if you have elite talent who are already MLB ready, cough, Mookie Betts, cough, Xander Bogaerts, cough, Rafael Devers, then you don't need anyone to, quote unquote, come from the system and be ready. And yes, we knew he was going to build the farm system, but you don't have to lie about it. And I don't know. You took over an 84-win team and you somehow made them worse, except for 2021, which you just found some luck. You got horseshoes up your you-know-whats, and you had a great, exciting postseason run. 2020 was a disaster. It was a disaster for a lot of teams because of the COVID-shortened year, but and then the whole Alex Cora situation. And then 2022 was a disaster. 2019 was a disaster. You're finishing last place in 3 of these 4 seasons that he's been here. And then you come out and start lying in this first event that you've been able to attend because of COVID and last year with the lockout. Like, give me a break. Get out. No, keep booing them because you're going to lie. Like, yes, you absolutely deserved to get booed when you're sitting there lying to the fans who have given you so much money, who have poured so much time into this team that you just end up ripping these players from them, except for Devers. But good job. You kept one of the 3 when you could have kept all 3. And maybe Betts didn't want to be here at the end of the day. I truly believe he wouldn't be here even if given that deal that he got with the Dodgers. But oh man, when I was watching that, I was like, you're lying. Like this isn't even just like a mix up or like he misspoke. Like you just straight up lied to a lot of people to a lot of people in the audience, to a lot of people who are watching on Twitter, on wherever, or following along on Twitter. Oh man, like he just keeps digging that grave shallower and deeper and deeper.
I don't think John Henry helped out his case either.
No.
With a lot of the questions that were directed to him, he just, Sam, you answer it. You know what I mean? And that's part of his job. He is the CEO, but at the same time, pretty much. But at the same time, when the portfolio question, the focus of the Red Sox, and you're asked this at a fan-focused event where you can already sort of feel the tension and the hatred towards you, not only from Winter Weekend, but also when you're essentially putting on a event like the Winter Classic, which is at your ballpark. But, granted, he also owns part of the other team that they were playing against. But at the same time, and you get booed when you're at your own home stadium, you understand sort of the displeasure that the fans have. And that was, I believe, even though a lot of fans, might have walked out, heard what John Henry said and not changed their opinion on him whatsoever, but he could have at least instilled confidence in the fans that he truly does care. And the one thing that came to my mind is Steve Cohen would grab that mic and let fans know how much he cares about the New York Mets. But, obviously Steve Cohen isn't John Henry. And, I think
very different people.
I think at the same time, it was more telling when he didn't say anything.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Like you show face for the first time in a long time, and you're facing questions for the first time in a long time. You have the opportunity to make a statement, to make a point, and to try to get fans not even back on your side, but just try to get them a little bit excited for the season and try to give them some explanation. But instead, like you said, you're just passing it over to Sam Kennedy, who, yes, he does answer a lot of questions. He's been rolled out in front of the media several times over the last 3 years in particular. With any move that's made, any explanation has come from Sam Kennedy. So I get that, whatever, like that's part of his job. But when you own the team and you're out there, you need to answer these questions. And even if it, like, I know Chaim Bloom lied, but like lie about it, the excitement at least, that these fans are not happy with you. That they've called for him to sell the team. They have said a lot of things, and he could have not necessarily undone a lot of that, but he could have helped his case by just showing a little bit of excitement or a little bit of encouragement and reason to be excited for the future, for next year, for the prospects, for Devers, for anything. And he didn't. And I know, like you mentioned Steve Cohen, and they're two, they couldn't be more opposite. Mm-hmm. But even if he just acted a little bit like that, a little bit of excitement, enthusiasm, anything, instead of just handing off the questions or almost acting like you didn't want to be there. And he probably didn't want to be there because he probably knew what was going to transpire. But you own it. You own one of the historic franchise of Major League Baseball, who's known for winning, who's known for getting World Series. And yes, there was one in 2018. That wasn't that long ago. But you see how far the team has basically dropped off. And you're not taking any accountability. You're just sitting there, and you have your people, the Brian O'Hallorans, the Chaim Blooms, the Sam Kennedys. Tom Warner even came out 2 weeks ago. So it just, I don't know. I just feel like when you own a team and you are responsible for what has happened, a lot of what has happened, you need to take some accountability, show some transparency, and again, enthusiasm. And yes, these fans are going to boo you. You deserve it. But give them reason to start cheering. Turn the boos into cheers, and those boos just got louder and louder and louder.
I think that's the key. What you just said is this isn't, a team that hasn't been in those big moments in a while, like a Miami Marlins or the Cincinnati Reds. Like, this is the Boston Red Sox, one of the top 4 most well-known sports franchises in Major League Baseball. And I think that's the key is really knowing not only that you own the team, but that so much support is behind you with that, but you also, with the power, got to be able to use that sort of power to the advantage of helping and wanting to motivate the fans to want to spend more money, because the ticket prices are only going more up, but the indication that the team is going to go up in wins isn't really too selling at the moment in time. But I also think I think the best part of that entire night on Friday was when Jared Carrabis took the mic and asked them what they would have changed in the Xander Bogaerts conversations or contract negotiations. I think how he phrased the question was perfect. I looked at the list of players that were going to be here, and one guy I noticed wasn't is Xander Bogaerts, and just the nonverbal communication of Cora, Chaim, and also Kennedy and Henry was hysterical. You see Cora have a little bit of a smirk and be like, wow, I can't believe Jared just asked this question, because they're friends. And then Chaim thinking there, geez, I didn't think this was coming. And then Henry and Sam probably thinking in their mind, when are we done?
And I think that they knew a question like that was coming, whether that was from Carrabis or anyone. I think that they were expecting something about Xander, and I think that they should have. And again, this is the first event that they've had something like this in 3 years. And in that time, you've gotten rid of Betts and Bogaerts. Like, they're obviously going to be talked about. But yeah, it was very uncomfortable, because I feel like my belief is that the Red Sox always knew before the Trevor Story signing, that they were not going to extend Bogaerts and that they were going to extend Devers. I think they knew. It just seems that way with how everything has happened, and the way that everyone kind of looks at each other. We know how Cora felt about Bogaerts, and he loved the guy. They loved playing. Bogaerts loved playing for Cora. They loved each other. Like, there was a lot of mutual respect there. And I'm sure Cora knows. I'm sure Cora wants to just spill everything, absolutely everything he knows. I hope he writes a tell-all book one day. And, he can't say probably what he wants to say. And no one really said probably what they wanted to say. But yeah, it was I could feel the tension, like, seeping through any Twitter video, any TV. And it was like, what do you expect? You get rid of someone, or you let someone walk for free, and without even like a legitimate offer that I felt and that he felt was okay. I mean, listen, I wouldn't give him the contract that the Padres gave him either. And we've talked about this. It should have never got to that point, which is why I think it was always their belief that they were never going to re-sign him. But like, just come out and say it. Answer the question. It's like, you're there for a reason. These questions are going to get asked, or at least prepare some BS answer to appease the fans. They're still going to boo you, but at least come up with something better than like, oh crap, who's going to answer that question? Awkward looks and just uncomfortable silence. It was very, very awkward.
And you brought up the name Trevor Story, and I do want to commend him for showing up and also being involved in the whole event. He grabbed the mic, and I believe Tom Caron was like, why'd you even show up? Like, I think that he said they had his surgery 10 to 14 days ago.
Yeah, 11 days.
And Story said, I wanted to, be here to support the fans and, be able to, talk to the best fans in the world. And, I'm not happy about, everything that has transpired over the last month or so with my injury, but, I can't wait to be back at the best stadium and the best fans to play in front of in all of baseball. And obviously, he was already on the list. It's not like he's just gonna like step out, but at the same time, I think that was cool to see him show face and really show that he's going to be not only one of those leaders, but one of those guys who's going to be there to support his teammates wherever it is.
Yeah, it was good to see him. I mean, I can tell you he looks good, but I mean, he was in a big old elbow brace, and I think he looks as good for removed 11 days from surgery as anyone could. Yeah. But it was great to see him. I do hope that he does play this year. He's signed for that 6-year deal. you don't want to lose him for a year. You don't even
Mhm.
want to lose him for 6 months, but it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, it's great that he did come out and he still was able to meet fans and meet with the media as well. And
Mhm.
hopefully his rehab goes really, really well, and hopefully better than we expect, because
Yep.
we need the Red Sox need him. They
Mhm.
desperately need him, and it's it was good. It was really like refreshing to see him and comparing like surgeries with Alex Spear, because Alex Spear had wrist surgery, so they were comparing like slings and braces and this, and him and Chris Sale were doing that too. So I think that, and I think he knows that there's probably always going to be a lot of eyes on him for being, a shortstop and then moving to second base, and then all of a sudden Bogarts is gone and he's going to move back to shortstop, and then he gets injured. There's just a ton of eyes on him for a number of reasons. But it was good to see. It was good to see a lot of people, come out, and they all seemed very excited for the season, which I think should excite fans and give them some sort of hope for an ounce of competitive season, because this team does have that potential to be. I don't think we're ever going to be able to go an episode without saying potential, but it can be good. There is talent there, but there's none of that like super pop, the power, the pop, the big names. There's really none of those. There are some from 5 years ago that we would have loved,
Mhm.
but overall, good to see Story, good to see Sale, and good to see Kike and everyone else that came out. But I hope Story can come back this year. I hope he can just continue
Me too.
to be a good player and provide stability at shortstop, because the Red Sox need it, because all the people
Yep.
they have now is not going to help.
No, completely agree. And the final thoughts that I had of Red Sox Winter Weekend was, number one, one of the biggest storylines I think going into the season is Tristan Cassis' mustache. I think he needs to keep that. I think that just adds to the personality and swagger of the team.
He
And then
can
two,
he can keep it until he goes into some slump, and then he's got to get rid, like Alex Cora's
yeah,
beard. That's what we can play it with. He can keep it
yeah.
until he does. If he starts the season slow, off it goes.
Completely agree. And then two other things. I thought it was interesting that Cora and Chaim said they had a meeting with all the team officials to figure out how to improve the workouts and everything to avoid injuries. I thought that was very interesting. That's one thing that they hadn't talked about yet. And then lastly, though, I believe the last thing that Cora said was that they plan to play clean baseball and bust their butt each and every single day. So hopefully that correlates into some wins, and hopefully that correlates into you making some money into FanDuel. But right now, the NFL playoffs are here, and we're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On, because they are the number one sports book in America, and that is FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets, from money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same game parlay. And so best to look forward to going into this weekend for NFL playoffs. We got the Bengals against the Chiefs, and then the 49ers against the Eagles. There's definitely going to be some great bets for that. We saw Joe Burrow sling the ball all over the Bills defense. Who knows? Brock Purdy could upset the Eagles and the MVP potential candidate in Jalen Hurts. It's all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or loss, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports book partner of the NFL. So now going into a new trade that the Red Sox just made yesterday. And this was a little bit unexpected with the news that we heard at the beginning of this episode. As I mentioned, now the Red Sox today have lost two relievers in their bullpen. Curious to see how they fill that. But Josh Taylor ended up getting traded for Alberto. I know I'm going to say his name wrong, and I'm
Adalberto.
Adalberto. See, you quibby. It happens all the time. That's probably my biggest weakness is the pronunciations. Adalberto Mondesi, and a player named later from the Royals, as I mentioned, for Josh Taylor. And Mondesi and the Royals avoided arbitration this past December, agreeing on a $3 million salary. And he's somebody, to say it lightly, hasn't been on the field really at all, dating back to 2018. He's appeared in 40% of the Royals' possible games, missing time due to, get ready, a right shoulder impingement, a groin strain, a pair of left shoulder injuries, a left hamstring strain, an oblique strain, and most recently tore his ACL, which wiped out his 2022 season. And both his left shoulder injury and his ACL tear required surgery.
Yeah, it's an extensive list of injuries, especially that ACL. I mean, that happened only in April last year. He only got to play 15 games, and I mean, he's just a depth piece. I don't see him being like an everyday player. I don't think he can stay healthy to be an everyday player. And I mean, it is what it is. Josh Taylor, I mean, whatever. He's not really a loss. He didn't pitch at all last year. He had, I think it was a back issue that just hindered him all year, and it was rehab start after rehab start and him never feeling right. So, I mean, whatever, it's not a loss, but I think it was an easy trade for the Red Sox to make. And this isn't a Bogarts replacement at all. It's just added depth, and we've talked about you can never have too much depth. And I mean, I don't know. I'd hate for him to come in and then all of a sudden he tears his ACL again. And I'm assuming he'll be ready. It's usually like an 8 or 9 month recovery. Sometimes it can take a year. So I will assume that I'm going under the impression that he will be ready for opening day. Like he'll be on the opening day roster. But I mean, it is what it is. It's not a move I'm getting excited for, but at the end of the day, they get rid of Josh Taylor, who wasn't bringing anything to the team. Obviously didn't bring anything to the team last year. So I mean, whatever. There is upside to Adalberto, definitely, but it's just the inconsistencies, the injuries, the not staying healthy. That's the same thing as injuries, but it's like I said, it is what it is. It's nothing I'm going to be jumping up and down for, and it's definitely not something I'm going to sit here and be like, "Yep, postseason, here we come."
Yeah, he really doesn't move the needle too much. Just adds depth up the middle. But my big question is, how are they really going to utilize him? Is it going to be a platoon with Kike Hernandez at shortstop? Is he going to be a platoon at second base? Is where does this leave Christian Arroyo? I'm very curious to see how they use each of those three players. Obviously Kike can go out in center field when Adam Duvall isn't playing out there. It gives you versatility. It gives you depth, as you mentioned. And, the one thing that I think Mondesi really gives you over anything is defense and also way more improved speed. But, starting off with his biggest weakness offensively, he has a very aggressive approach and a subpar bat-to-bat skills. He actually fanned 30.2% of his plate appearances against just a 4.4 walk rate and has a career 244 batting average in the big leagues. And surprisingly enough, he only had one good offensive season, and that was in 2018 over his time in the league since 2016. He batted 276 with 14 home runs, but he had more strikeouts than he did hits. And that's a very similar trend that he's had for his entire career offensively in the majors.
Take any positive you can get, right? When it comes to this Red Sox team and how they're trying to replace Bogarts and Story. Like Story getting injured just really threw a wrench in probably the Red Sox plans here. But yeah, there's definitely, like I said, there's definitely upside, but I just don't have a lot of hope for it just due to the injury history, right. Not playing more than 60 games. We don't count the COVID season. He played 59 games. That's close enough, but he only hit 60 plus games twice and 102 games, over 100 games once. Like it's going to be very hard to get excited about a guy who gets injured all the time and can't stay on the field long enough to truly help his team. Are we talking about Chris Sale or are we talking about Adalberto? I don't know.
I mean, and there are a lot of guys on this current depth chart right now that do have a lot of injury question marks. And I think when you really want to feel confidence about this team going into 2023, every single thing has to essentially go right. And, I think, continuing on, analyzing, Mondesi and, what he can bring to this team defensively, since he joined the league in 2016, he's tied for 12th with Carlos Correa with 23 outs above average. He had a 981 fielding percentage at shortstop since 2016. And then also the speed, like I mentioned. And these are some interesting numbers per StatCast between 2016 and 2021. Only 14 qualified players were faster than Mondesi. And this is according to Gabriel Starr, a good friend of the program. His 29.9 feet per second sprint speed over that span, was the 8th fastest in the game, and he's stolen a lot of bases since his time in the majors. That is one of the other biggest pluses. He does add a much needed speed factor to this team. There's not a lot of guys who can really steal bags on this team. I believe Christian Vasquez was one of the top base stealers on this team last season. That's pretty crazy. But he had 32 stolen bases over 75 games in 2018, 43 and 102 games in 2019. 24 and 59 games in 2020, and then during 2020 into 2021, he had 21 stolen bases over 59 games. So he's definitely going to give you that ability that
if he can stay on the field,
that to be able to slot in, whether it's a pinch runner or once he does get on base, which according to his numbers doesn't happen too much, he will give you that speed factor. But the one question that comes up into my mind, and, especially, with this Matt Barnes DFA happening, will the Red Sox want to add another middle infield option, maybe like a Joey Wendell, maybe not through the trade market because we know how Chaim Bloom doesn't like giving up players for other players, but maybe like an Elvis Andrus through free agency to maybe give some Mondesi a little bit more competition going into spring training. The Red Sox a little bit more depth and also a more reliable guy who has stayed on the field and is a veteran to this Red Sox middle infield tandem. Curious to see if, maybe the 40-man roster comes into issue with that. We both would love to not see Ryan Brasier on this 40-man roster, but, will that be something that the Red Sox will look into before the season starts?
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that, it's almost February, which means pitchers and catchers, everyone's going to start reporting to Florida very, very soon. And opening day is the end of March. So we're about 2 months and some odd days away from opening day. And we can predict what the roster will look like, but who knows? And we could say maybe Chaim Bloom has something up his sleeve. I don't think it's going to be anything good. I mean, maybe there's going to be more moves that will shock us. The Red Sox made the Duvall and Matt Barnes DFA, the Duvall contract and Matt Barnes DFA official. So maybe we'll get some explanation. It's the press conference is still TBD, but I don't know. Season is very close, and every day I'm like, what is this season going to be? Because it could be good, it could be horrendously bad, and the Red Sox could be out of it by the end of May, or they could be hanging on by a thread and giving us an ounce of hope. I don't know. It's just, it gets weirder by the day. It feels like we feel like we're on like a good slope, not necessarily like a one that's inclining. And we're like, all right, we're feeling okay. Nothing bad has happened. And then boom, it's like you just hit the ground. It's like splat. Yeah. What is direction, please? Which way?
Even when it was inclining, then the story stuff happened. Well, it was like 6 days of like feeling good as a Red Sox fan. But I just really cannot understand like what it was $8 million for Barnes, and they've been penny pinching like this entire offseason to stay under the luxury tax. So now you're telling me that they're going to go out and spend $3 to $5 million on another reliever? I'm really just trying to wrap my head around it, and maybe that sloshes down like that point that I just made of getting Andrus, because you're probably going to have to pay $3 to $5 million for him as well. But very interesting stuff. We have a lot of really exciting guests planned over the next few weeks leading up to spring training, who are going to give some great analysis on this team leading up to the season. I also have a very exciting interview with Red Sox second base prospect Christian Koss coming up for Friday's episode. So get ready for that. And if you have any questions in mind for Christian, you can tweet us over on Twitter. We're also going to make a tweet prior to the episode, so you can get your questions in there as well. But you can follow us on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. You can also follow myself. It's at Jake Iggy, and also Lauren. It's La 3 Laws, Lauren with 4 R's. But as always, we greatly appreciate you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And also, as Lauren mentioned, the season is creeping up really, really quickly. And so if you want to stay updated on everything regarding the Boston Red Sox, as you can see, if you listen throughout this entire episode up until now. We give some great analysis. We give some, funny opinions as well. And we also don't mind, being honest about our favorite team and giving a little bit of criticism as well. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, whether it's on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. But greatly appreciate everybody tuning in as always. And we'll end it how we always end it. And, I started this, once the new year started. I didn't really continue with it, but let's keep the faith. And finally, let's go Red Sox. Peace.